Good morning and welcome. My name is Leslie Banis, Director of Programs here at the Community Foundation. Wanted to say thank you for joining us this morning. I want to give you a few tips before we begin the presentation. If you have any questions, please use the chat, which will be down on the bottom of your screen, and you can send a message to the panelist. Please note the only one that will see those messages will be the panelist. We will have questions at the end, so please feel free to type your questions in at any point, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. You may also use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And when you do that, we can call on you to ask a question instead of typing it. But please note, when you do ask a question, your name will pop up on the screen. So if you'd like to, the chat might be the best option. So we will get started today. I'm going to pass it over to President and CEO of the Community Foundation, Barzella Papa. Barzella?
Thank you so much, Leslie. Can you hear me? Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. We have a lot of information that we're going to cover, so we're going to jump right in and get started. As Leslie said, please use the chat box at any time to post any questions. Leslie will be moderating the chat box. She will share my email address as well as a way that you can contact me after the presentation with any follow-up questions that we may not answer today. So just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I was the first full-time CEO hired by the Community Foundation almost 15 years ago. I actually came from the for-profit world. I had worked in publishing for a number of years before moving to Gainesville and getting very involved in the community. I was offered this position almost 15 years ago, and I absolutely love the work that community foundations do, not only here in Florida, but across the nation and worldwide. So that's just a little bit about me. I have seen a lot of growth, worked with a lot of donors, and again, happy to answer any questions today. So again, please take a moment, and if there's any burning questions that you hope that we answer today, put those into the chat box and we will get to those at the end of today's presentation. So I want to start off with community foundations defined, because I often say when you see one community foundation, you've seen one community foundation. They really are reflective of the needs of the communities. But at the heart of the community foundation model, we are a 501c3 public charity that is a grant-making organization, typically dedicated to improving the lives in a specific geographic area. However, we can direct grants to anywhere in the US, and some international grant making as well. We often go beyond just the grant making function, and you'll oftentimes see community foundations being the facilitators of charitable activities in our communities. And I will share later in today's program some of the programs that we do here in our community to promote and sustain philanthropy here in North Central Florida. Community foundations typically offer a wide variety of services to donors who wish to establish charitable funds. And I always like to say you can really think of the Community Foundation as the philanthropic back office for our fund holders, overseeing their grant making, doing all the due diligence, and making sure that their charitable intentions are carried out. So I'd like to start back at the beginning of the Community Foundation model, because most people are not very familiar with it, but the Community Foundation model has actually been around for over 100 years. It was established in 1914 by this gentleman, Frederick Goff, who was a retired judge and banker in Cleveland, Ohio. And he saw the need at that point in time in American history. You had very, very wealthy families creating private foundations, many of which are still in existence today. You had Ford, Rockefeller, Carnegie, that they were establishing these very large family foundations. And he wanted to create a vehicle by which other people could also participate in large-scale philanthropy. So the Community Foundation model was born that would basically allow donors to pool their contributions together and then participate in large-scale grant making. Community foundations are not like other foundations. Our assets truly do come from the community and not typically one source as a corporate foundation or a family foundation. Although we are a nonprofit organization, we're not like other nonprofits. We don't typically focus on one specific area of need. We really are a macro approach to philanthropy. I like to say we're at philanthropy at 30,000 feet. We are monitoring all the community needs and not just one specific focus area. And while we are fundraising, we also are a grant making entity. So very, very different from other nonprofits that are typically fundraising to support their work. We are a steward of permanent resources. We are about building endowments. Not all of our funds are truly endowed, but we really do urge donors and nonprofits to think long term. And we want to have these permanent resources to sustain our community for years to come. We serve 3 constituencies. We are a grant making organization, 2 nonprofits. We help our donors achieve their charitable intentions, and we serve the community at large. So you'll see here that the community foundation model has been one of the fastest growing sectors in all of philanthropy. What started over 100 years ago in Cleveland, Ohio, has now exceeded more than 1,800 community foundations worldwide. There's actually more community foundations outside of the US than there are in the US. Here in the United States, there are approximately about 800 right now. In Florida, there's 28. So again, a really, really fast growing business model. I like to share this graph. This was actually from about 3 years ago, some research from the Mott Foundation tracking the community foundation model. And I always like to point out that very, very top, that little world globe, that is the number of community foundations as of about 3 years ago. As I said, we were over 1,800. And I like the hourglass to show you as well. 74% of community foundations have been established in the last 25 years. For here in Florida, the first community foundation established here in our state was Jacksonville in 1964. So it took 50 years for the model to get here into our state. The other fact we like to point out is right in the middle there, 64% of community foundations typically have 5 or fewer paid employees. So they tend to work very, very lean and very efficient for our fund holders. So a little bit about the Community Foundation of North Central Florida. We were founded in 1998 by members of the Estate Planning Council who saw the need to create a community foundation here for our community as well. The purpose was to build permanent resources to support local programming. And you see there our mission is to promote and sustain philanthropy among the communities here in North Central Florida. I like to say that we try to go beyond transactional giving, and we work with our fund holders to make their charitable giving become transformational and not just transactional. And I'll share many stories as we go through today of some of our fund holders and some of the ways that they are achieving their charitable legacies. So founded in 1998 by members of the Estate Planning Council and really driven by that volunteer board of directors. I would say our first major milestone was our first major gift from this couple in this photo right here. Many of you may recognize Dr. Robert Cade, the inventor of Gatorade. Dr. Cade was our first major donor. In 2002, he gifted the Community Foundation a half a unit of the Gatorade Royalty Trust to establish a donor advised fund, the Cade Family Fund. And he came back the next year, gave another half unit. And so we have been working with the family since that time on all of their philanthropic endeavors. Fast forward to today, the Community Foundation of North Central Florida currently houses more than 130 different charitable funds with the total assets of $23 million. And you see there, of which 68% of those funds are endowed. We oversee the distribution of approximately $3.5 million in grants annually, and we work very close with the estate planning community and with donors that want to do planned giving. And so as of today, we have approximately $19 million in documented bequests. You'll see throughout this presentation that we utilize a variety of philanthropic tools. We really try to go beyond just the traditional check writing to help achieve charitable intentions. So how does it work? Well, it's pretty simple. I often say it's it's quick and it's easy. There's really 3 steps to the process. An individual decides when they want to give. So is it end of the year that you want to get the charitable deduction? Or is there a life event? Have you had a sale of a business? Are you selling real estate? Is there some type of life event that is prompting the thought of doing some charitable intention? Or are you thinking about a planned gift? So how do you want to leave the charities that you care about? How do you want to designate them in your will and estate plans? The next step is to decide what to give. Obviously, most people donate cash, write checks to their favorite charities. We really try to take it a step beyond that. Appreciated stocks, we get an enormous amount of contributions for appreciated stocks throughout the year. If you have an IRA, the required minimum distribution, the Community Foundation is a qualified charity. So we have a number of donors that do a qualified charitable distribution to the Community Foundation that can support scholarships or in some of our funds that are under management or some of our programmatic work. And then also real estate. Real estate is another one that you can donate to the Community Foundation to start your charitable fund. Then the third step is to name the fund and then consult with the staff for the right type of fund and then the investment strategies as well. So I'll run through quickly the different types of funds that we have at the Community Foundation, our most popular being the donor advised fund. The donor advised fund is really a great alternative to creating a private foundation. It has different restrictions that we could go into more detail about, but basically a donor advised fund is the donor creates the fund, they name the fund, and then they serve as advisors directing the Community Foundation on the charities that they want to receive funds and the timing of those funds. Unlike a private foundation that has a required distribution annually, a donor advised fund does not have that. So oftentimes we have donors that'll create a donor advised fund. Maybe they had a very good year in real estate sales, and they want to get the deduction, so they'll fund a donor advised fund, but yet they're not quite sure what charitable organizations they want to support. So we work with them to decide how do we want to make distributions in a time frame, but we're not bound by a set period of time that we have to make the distributions. So the donor advised fund is our most popular funds that we offer. The next one is the agency funds, and those are established by nonprofit organizations to benefit itself. That's our second most popular. Many nonprofits just don't want to have to handle the administrative burden of managing the investments of their endowed funds, so they can park them at the Community Foundation. And again, we serve as that back office to administer their endowed funds. The next one is the designated fund, and that is donors that already know exactly who they want their charitable fund to benefit. It could be their alma mater, it could be a charitable organization that they serve on the board of, but that fund is set up with the named organization already in the fund that will receive distributions either annually or over set period of times set forth by the donor. We offer some scholarships as well. So if a donor feels very strongly about educational opportunities, they can set up a scholarship fund at the Community Foundation. And again, we handle all of the administration for administering those scholarship dollars. And then finally, the field of interest. This can be a donor that, they really care about, let's just say, arts and culture. But they don't necessarily know the organizations that they want to support. So they can create a field of interest fund, and the Community Foundation can help select nonprofits on a set time frame as well. So how does the donor advised fund work? Again, as I said, this is our most popular. The first step is a donor makes an irrevocable contribution of some type of personal asset that they've decided on. They get the maximum allowable tax deduction, name the fund, it gets parked in right there, step 4, your contribution is invested and grows tax-free. And then the 5th step is you recommend grants to qualified charities at any time. So again, it's a pretty simple process and quick and easy for us to set up. As I mentioned earlier, we really are a macro approach to philanthropy, and we really do monitor all community needs. I wanted to share this graph with you today to just show the wide variety of grant making by focus area that we do. You'll see here, we really do monitor all of the needs in the community. This was midway through 2020. You'll see that 25% of our grant dollars went for mental health organizations and mental health services, followed behind 13% at environmental organizations and community development organizations. 9% animal related. You'll see arts and culture, youth development, sports, housing, human needs. We really do keep our finger on the pulse of the needs here in our community. Now, I know I touched on for a little bit the investments of our organizations and the funds that we have under management. So at this time, I am going to stop sharing my screen and I am going to turn it over to Ben Cannon and Michael Tillman from Tillman Hartley. They are our investment counsel, and let them tell you more about the investment strategies at the Community Foundation.
Good morning. We are Tillman Hartley. Michael Tillman, our founding partner, is able to join the call with us this morning, so we're pleased to have him with us. And a lot of the history here dovetails nicely with Michael's history. Michael began his involvement with the Community Foundation at the very beginning. So Tillman Hartley has managed investments for the Community Foundation for over 20 years now, a long history. And Michael came from the estate planning world, so that really served him well to provide advice for community foundations. We are involved in charitable remainder trust, donor advised funds, other entities like that. And we manage 3 portfolios for the Community Foundation currently. And we can establish custom portfolios for donors if they have an interest. So Michael had a unique perspective coming into the investment world from the estate planning world. He really asked the question of what is the best way to invest my money and his clients' money. And he went about looking at the research, and he didn't start with the idea that he knew the best approach. And I think that really served him well and served the Community Foundation well. We don't try to pick winners and losers. We believe that markets are efficient on the whole. There are occasional instances where you'll see that fails, but on the grand scheme, markets work, and you should let them work for you and not against them. And diversification is one of the only free lunches, we like to say, that you can avoid unnecessary risk, single stock risk, single country risk by diversifying. And we really embrace that philosophy. So we use widely diversified funds and try to keep the cost low. They're not quite index funds. I'll get to that in just a second. We use a structured approach to investing. And part of that is that structured approach is that we believe risk and return are related. So if you take on more risk, as long as it's diversified, you should expect to receive a higher return. And that's really the underpinning that leads to the efficient markets. If there's enough participants that are seeking that return and are willing to take on the risk, then on the whole, markets should follow that relationship between risk and return. And as such, the portfolio structure can explain the vast majority of the performance. And we'll see that later with the performance in the Community Foundation's portfolios, where portfolios that are heavy in equities tend to be more volatile, but over long enough time horizon, they also provide a larger expected return. So I referenced the portfolio structure and the structured based investing and how it differs from indexing. We believe that, and the research shows, financial research shows that you can tilt portfolios towards various factors that will lead to slightly larger performance over a long enough time horizon. Those are like value stocks tend to outperform growth stocks. Small companies tend to outperform large companies. Stocks themselves tend to outperform bonds. And the newer one is that profitable companies tend to outperform unprofitable companies, which seems like a no-brainer, but that's what the research had to prove before we adopted it and our fund managers adopted that tilt. So this is a chart showing over various periods of time, 1, 5, and 10-year periods, those factors that I just referenced and the percentage of time that they outperform. And this is from July of 1926 to December of 2019. So you can see for any given 1-year time horizon, that's the lowest bar there, the even stocks are only beat bonds about 70% of the time. And so if you look at these others, the value beats growth about 60%, small beats large about 56. So it's close to a coin toss. But when you start looking at longer and longer time horizons, the anticipated return becomes larger. The percentage of the time that you're going to beat the other not factor. So T-bills and growth and things like that. And that's why we really do well. I think our philosophy aligns well with the Community Foundation. Barzella referenced the long-term view, and we love that. That gives donors the ability to really experience those long-term expected performances. So currently, we manage 3 portfolios, and they all focus on those factors that we just discussed. The 60/40 portfolio was the initial portfolio. All the 2 equity portfolios, 60/40 and 80/20, the equity portion is globally diversified, so it's not overexposed to any one country or geographic location. And we tend to avoid countries like Russia or some of those other countries where there's capital constraints. So that's the only constraint that we really have in a globally diversified portfolio. But the 60/40 portfolio is good for intermediate periods. But if you're looking for an endowed portfolio, the 80/20 is really where we like to recommend folks remain. If you have a long enough time horizon, the 80/20 is a great fit. And the fixed income portfolio in recent years has taken a hit with the low yields. And I say taken a hit, but it's really just, it doesn't perform. It doesn't give you a whole lot of return. So it's intended for short-term money that is intended to be spent. So it's not a long-term investment vehicle. And so probably will not keep up with inflation even over a long enough time horizon. And these are the portfolio returns, and I included inflation on the bottom there as a gauge. You can see the fixed income portfolio at the bottom has not had a negative year of return, and these are net of our management fees and fund fees. So that's impressive. However, if you look at inflation, the story becomes a little bit less rosy, that it does not keep up with inflation over a long enough time horizon. So that's why we really encourage people to embrace the risk if you have a long time horizon. And the story, the risk and return are related, proves out here very well over these 10 years that you can see in 2011, the 80/20 portfolio started off with the worst return of the 3, and in 2012, it recovers. And if you look on the long enough time horizon, the annualized, this is about what we would expect on a long time horizon, that the performance, the 80/20 outperforms the 60/40 by, percent, a little bit more than 1%, and both just absolutely beat the fixed income portfolio. And that's why this is really a short-term vehicle, and the 80/20 is best for long-term endowed monies. And everybody wants to know, obviously, what the costs are, and we pay close attention to that as well. We use a mix of Vanguard, Dimensional Fund Advisor funds, and other iShares, some other funds that we try to really pay attention to the low fees. We avoid fees, hidden such as initial sales charges, deferred sales charges, 12b1 fees. We are a fiduciary, so we don't get any benefit from the funds that we suggest our clients hold. They are truly our best advice, and that's why we suggest them. So the internal fund fees have been coming down over time, which is great. They're all below 30 basis points, as you can see. They hopefully will continue to decrease over time as ETFs are more widely adopted. And our investment management portion of that is 25 basis points, so 0.25% annually. That's it for me. Michael, anything you'd like to add there?
No, well done, Ben. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Let me start my video back again and share screen. Okay. I hope everybody can see the We're back to programs. Perfect. I got a thumbs up there. You gotta love technology. So thank you so much, Ben and Michael. And if you're welcome to stay on, because I know we may have some questions toward the end. But again, thank you for sharing that about our investment strategies and options for donors with funds at the foundation. So I'm going to take, so just to kind of let you know for the remaining time together here, I'm going to touch a little bit on our programs. And that was a great segue, Ben, that I'll touch on our fees as well at the foundation. And then we'll go into a couple of different case studies, and I'll share with you some of our fund holder stories as well, and some options for potential donors and fund holders as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about the programs. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we do is we offer donors a wide variety of services, and we also really are a facilitator of philanthropic activities in our community. So I want to share some of our programs and to show you what we do here to promote philanthropy. Our very first one of our first programs that we started 15 years ago, whenever I started at the foundation, was we launched our community's first ever giving circle, which is really using that collective giving model. This was our Women's Giving Circle. It was created by the female members of our board of directors with the concept of women would come together, contribute $1,000 a piece. We would pull it together and then put it back out into the community in the form of a large grant. They decided early on that it would benefit women and girls in Alachua County in the area of economic empowerment, job skills, life skills. Since inception, we've had more than 200 women participate in the Women's Giving Circle. A portion of the contributions have gone into a permanently endowed fund at the Community Foundation. It has generated more than $1 million in support for local organizations working with women and girls in our community. And I like to share that it's been so wildly successful that it was actually referenced in an article about the popularity of women's giving circles across the country in the New York Times a few years ago. So huge shout out to our Women's Giving Circle. It's a wonderful way to introduce philanthropy and the Community Foundation as well. Our next big program that has been also wildly successful is our Amazing Give. And the Amazing Give is utilizing that crowdfunding model like Giving Tuesday. We launched this 5 years ago. It was our community's first ever 24-hour online give day. So really utilizing social media, furthering the outreach for donors. We have had donors from 6 continents, all 50 states, 60 out of the 67 counties in Florida. And this event has had more than 120 local nonprofits to participate. Funds come in and go straight to the nonprofits through this event. And in just 5 of these events, we have been able to raise more than $4.5 million for local nonprofits in our community. So again, it's been wildly successful and a great way also to learn more about the nonprofits in our community. And we actually have our next one coming up, April the 22nd. We're going to do just a 12-hour day. Last year, we did shift the Amazing Give to COVID emergency relief. So our 24 hours actually turned into about 4 months that we used the platform to help local organizations during the pandemic. Then finally, one of our biggest programs that we have at the Community Foundation is our Center for Nonprofit Excellence. This was launched in 2015. We really recognized the need. As a funder into our nonprofit community here, we saw the need for capacity building with the organizations that we were funding. We want the nonprofits to be sustainable, so we launched the Center for Nonprofit Excellence to provide ongoing training, networking, and educational opportunities for anyone working in the nonprofit sector, serving on a board of directors, volunteering. And since we've launched this, we've had more than 60 local nonprofits to participate through our Center for Nonprofit Excellence. We hold governance training, fundraising training, everything to improve the capacity of local organizations. So again, this has been really successful. We have a lot of success stories from nonprofits that have really come through this and really strengthened their organizations. Excuse me. So how we fund our work. So this is a segue perfectly. How do we do the work that we do? How is it funded? So as a funder of nonprofits, here locally, we do not actively fundraise for our operating. So we do not hold event fundraisers. We do rely on an administrative fee that we assess on the funds under management. And we also rely on grants and direct contributions from our supporters as well. And I'll show you that breakdown shortly. But we do charge an administrative fee for the funds under management. It is assessed monthly. It is a sliding scale based on the size of the fund and the type of fund. It typically averages about 1 to 1.5% annually, with the average being 1.25%. So though that administrative fee goes to cover the fund management of all the funds under management, and it also includes an annual independent audit that we conduct every year for the funds under management. And our audited financial reports are available on our website. I know Leslie can share that link in the chat box as well. So you can go back and look at all of our audited financial reports for the last 15 years. So just in full transparency, this is a breakdown of our operating revenue. As you see there, about 44% of our operating revenue does come from the administrative fees of funds under management, along with some grants that we get, direct contributions, and then royalty income as well. So why choose a community foundation? Well, I'm going to quickly go through 3 major reasons: community leadership, personalized service, and local expertise as the main reason why to work with a local community foundation. So personalized service, we really do, as I said earlier on, we don't want your giving to feel transactional. We want it to be transformational. So we work with donors to educate them on a variety of charitable giving vehicles. Also, we research nonprofits for them, really work closely to develop personalized giving statements for our individual fund holders. We facilitate more complex forms of giving, and I'm going to share some examples in a minute. We're set up to accept a wide variety of different types of gifts. One of our biggest being the securities. We get a big majority of appreciated stocks donated each and every year. We help donors create personal legacies. And then another really popular reason that people choose a community foundation is the anonymity. So we do provide that someone can give anonymously to support organizations that they care about. So our community foundation is comprised of 27 members of our board of directors that are all local leaders with a wide variety of knowledge of community issues, opportunities. They bring a vast array of resources to our organization. So it's a local organization led by local staff and local board members. And as I showed you with that grant making piece earlier, we really do monitor all community needs. So we are able to gather information, track local agencies and programs, and I will share with you toward the end some tools that you can use that we provide for our fund holders and donors and for the community at large. And then finally, the community leadership. We really are a neutral convener. We act as a catalyst for change in our community. And because we're such that macro approach, we can really step in, and you will see in some of our case studies shortly that we can use our leadership to help transform giving and transform nonprofit organizations. We are about building endowments. So as I shared earlier, 68% of our funds under management are permanent and will be here to sustain organizations forever. All right, so the fun part. This is going to be the fun time. I'm going to jump in and share a couple of case studies. Some are most are our local funds here as well. So I always love to just tell stories because I think that really brings it home of, oh, okay, that great way to solve issues and achieve charitable intentions. So our first one that I want to share is our mental wellness fund. This was created about 5 years ago, and I think it's coming up on 6 years now, by a local donor who had really a personal connection because of their grandchild around mental health, and especially in young children. So they wanted to establish a fund with a priority to fund mental health services for children in the community. So we worked with the Alachua County Public Schools to identify 4 really high needs elementary schools. The donor wanted to remain anonymous. So again, we provided that anonymity. And a little bit of background on this donor actually does have a private foundation, but they wanted to do this gift personally. So the donor committed 1.2 million annually, often gifting highly appreciated stocks that were personally held. We receive that gift, we liquidate it, and then we are set up on a distribution time frame with the public schools, and we entered into the grant arrangement with the public schools to carry out what the donor intends. So Alachua County Public Schools has to report to the Community Foundation on a quarterly basis the progress of the program, and it has been very, very, very successful. I believe on the last report that we got from the public schools, we have one coming up soon, that the elementary schools where we have mental health counselors placed that this fund is providing for, those schools actually have wait lists now for children in the elementary school awaiting mental health services. So again, we were a great conduit for the donor to achieve what they wanted to achieve on a personal level. The next story goes back a few years ago. Our local food bank, Bread the Mighty Food Bank, was losing the lease facility where they were located, and they didn't have the means at that time to relocate. They were struggling to find a place, and they didn't know what they were going to do. They had a board member who went home that night after a board meeting, shared with their family the situation that the food bank was facing, and the family decided that they would step in and do something. So the family had property in North Carolina that they gifted to the Community Foundation. We sold the property and underwrote the mortgage for the Bread the Mighty Food Bank's new location. So the proceeds of that sale went to purchase their new building. And since that time, the Bread the Mighty Food Bank makes a payment back to the Community Foundation, a monthly payment to us that is directed into the donor's donor advised fund, because they, I know, have set that up for their children and their grandchildren to serve as advisors on for years to come. So it was a wonderful solution to a problem that our food bank here was facing, and it was a win-win for both the donor and the organization. Now, one of the more popular things that we have been seeing in recent years, and this was when with the higher standard deductions went into effect in 2018, was bundling. So bundling basically is some donors can choose to bundle their contributions and their giving to reach the annual deduction level while still donating their regular annual amounts to the charities that they choose. So this means that they would gift 2 to 3 years worth of their charitable donations at one time through a donor advised fund. So let me show you how that looks as well. So how does the bundling work? So essentially year one, they donate, in this case, 2 years worth of giving to a donor advised fund, and then they itemize their deductions. Year two, we can support the charities that you care about with grants from the donor advised fund and take the standard deduction. Then year three, repeat it again. Donate 2 years worth of giving to your donor advised fund and then itemize your deduction. We can then send grants to the charities that you choose and it repeats the process. So bundling has become very, very popular as well. So how can we serve you? So we can obviously assist with your charitable giving by creating and building a charitable fund. As I shared earlier, we do have a wide variety through our programs of ways to engage in philanthropy through our giving circle, through collective giving, or participating in the Amazing Give through crowdfunding. We also work very, very closely with estate planning attorneys, and we work with a number of attorneys and their clients on their wills and estate plans. We also work with families and their intergenerational philanthropic giving as well. So we can come in, work with the family on establishing their giving values, create personalized mission statements, and really that crossing over the generations, because we like to say, you know, philanthropy, your philanthropy may not be your grandparents' philanthropy. So we work within families to help establish that intergenerational giving. We also can help research potential funding areas of needs, and we're going to share here in a moment a new tool and a couple other tools that you can use as well. if you want to research area of needs or learn more about local nonprofit organizations. And then we also, through our Center for Nonprofit Excellence, if you are involved in a nonprofit organization or you're contemplating serving on the board of a nonprofit, or you just want to learn more, we do offer that ongoing educational opportunities through our Center for Nonprofit Excellence. So I mentioned a couple of tools that we're going to share with you today. The first one we launched last year at the beginning of 2020. It's our Philanthropy Hub. So the philanthropyhub.org is basically our online searchable database of local nonprofits here in our community. It's free to use. You can think of it as our community's version of GuideStar. So in the hub, you can enter in a local organization, and what this is it really provides a local nonprofit, our nonprofit community, a way to tell their story. So we do have about 120 reporting requirements that we ask nonprofits to complete and to really to build transparency for their donors and also help build capacity within their organizations as well. Financials are directly pulled from the IRS website. So you can go in and you can take a look at their financial statements. You can look at their governance structure. You can see what their greatest area of needs are. And organizations that complete all of 120 reporting requirements and that we check out that they're up to date with their IRS filings, they're up to date with their state registrations, will receive a verification. So when you go to their page, you'll see that they've been verified by the Community Foundation. There are about 130 local nonprofit organizations in the hub. So please feel free to use this tool at any time to learn more about the needs in our community. Many organizations also have the option that you can donate right to their organization through this site as well. So please, if you get a chance, take a look at the Philanthropy Hub. Leslie's going to put in the chat box. We also have a guide for professional advisors that we're going to share the link to that booklet that has everything a professional advisor will need when working with their clients on their leaving their charitable legacies. So everything that we've covered today is in this booklet that's going to be in the chat box. And then finally, we also have just rolled out with a giving guide for donors to use. So Leslie's going to provide the link for that as well. Our giving guide really is a workbook that you can use to really narrow in and dial in your focus area and your values and what organizations that you want to support as well. So those links will be in the chat box and they may already be there. I just cannot see it. So I am going to stop sharing screen. And we'll come back and see if we have, Leslie, any questions. I know we've covered a lot of information in a short amount of time. So
we've had a few people ask about sharing this presentation. And so I just let them know that we are recording and we can share the slides and the presentation as well as the links that are in the chat. Again, please type any questions or you can hit the raise your hand button.
Well, while we're waiting for any questions, I will put one of our founders on the spot, Michael. Is there anything that I am forgetting?
Thanks, Barzell. I thought that was well done. It's incredible to me that the history and how we started this in the 90s and how the community participated. Everybody would show up for a meeting once a month. We didn't have anyone to help run the organization, and all the volunteers that pitched in. And then you transformed the Community Foundation. I just want to let you know. So, yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Michael. I wasn't expecting that. Thank you. Well, if we don't have any questions, I always love finishing. Oh, perfect. We have a question here, and great question. Do we have a recommended minimum starting gift size? And yes, we do. We recommend our fund minimum to start a fund is $10,000. We do have, if some people want to build up to that, we can do that. but 10,000 is our recommended minimum to start a fund. And one thing I wanted to add as well, we do work very, very closely with a number of private foundations as well. One thing, many of you may be aware, a private foundation has a required minimum that they have to distribute every year. We have a number of private foundations that actually will make a distribution to a donor advised fund at a community foundation, and it satisfies the required distribution that the private foundation has to make. And then the donor advised fund gives them flexibility that if they want to stagger it out over a few years, or if they're still trying to research an area of need. So we do work really, really closely with a number of private foundations as well. And you will see in the professional advisor handbook, there is a chart in there. Really, it's a breakdown of a comparison between a private foundation and a donor advised fund, and the pros and the cons of each. So thank you for that question. So wonderful. Thank you, Leslie. Leslie has put my email address in the chat field. I'm available at any time to schedule meetings. Just shoot me an email, or if you have a question that we didn't cover today. So if there are no further questions, I always love finishing a little early, and I can give you back about 10 to 12 minutes of your day. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Everyone, have a great day.